Hi everyone! Today NEWFORUM is hosting one of its first Web3 Research Graph panels, and our guests are like the rockstars of digital identity, credentials, and self-sovereign identity, and we're honored to have with us Evin McMullen, the founder and CEO of Disco.xyz, member of Boys Club, Hadrien, the co-founder of Sismo, as well as Nichanan, head of platform at 1KX and leading researcher. Hi everyone, we're happy to have you here today.
GM, thank you so much for having us today.
Happy to be here, thanks. Let's start with taking your paper, Nich. Quoting you said that decentralized identity is a mega project that is much bigger than one team. It takes an ecosystem-wide effort to converge on standards and iterate on primitives. So to start this conversation, can each of you briefly introduce the project you're working on, and what is your definition of a verifiable credential in SBT?
I can get this party started.
Yeah, go for it.
Wonderful. Well, first, just want to thank our friends at NEWFORUM for having us today. Really appreciate the opportunity for us to learn from one another and have this discussion here. So my name is Evin McMullen. I work with the team at Disco, and we are especially excited about decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. So these methods from the World Wide Web Consortium, the folks who brought us the internet, allow us to retrofit existing key pairs from PGP to Bitcoin to Ethereum in a manner where they can sign and receive encrypted signed notes. So kind of like passing notes via API between key pairs. And so these signed statements off-chain can be private by default, revocable, or can be set to expire. So complementing our on-chain public persistence are called verifiable credentials with a capital E and a capital C. Of course, the phrase verifiable credentials, a credential that can be verified, can describe many things. Our name tag when we work at a store, our driver's license, or even an NFT or other on-chain attestation about us. And so at Disco, we're excited about all the data that's not fit for the chain, data that is suboptimal to be globally available, publicly persistent, and opinionated to a single underlying protocol. So we're excited to be the yin to the on-chain yang, and to be able to offer ephemerality, consent first, and interoperable data to complement what we're already so good at with on-chain immutable primitives and a sort of low consent or consent-free environment that we experience on-chain. And so to talk about that, we'll hand it over to my awesome co-panelist.
I can go next. So hi everyone, and thanks for this. So I'm Hadrien, I'm the founder of Sismo. And so what is Sismo is a communication protocol. We leverage zero-knowledge proofs so that users can prove things about their sovereign data, and they can bring it anywhere. So basically in Sismo, you can add data sources such as a wallet, a Twitter account, or a GitHub. And from this, you can self-generate attestation of things. Let's say that you have more than one Ether, that you are part of the proof of humanity registry, or that you are a verified user on Twitter, things like that. And we a bit like Bitcoin and Ethereum leverage the signature to prove ownership of an account in a public way. We leverage zero-knowledge proofs to selectively disclose data about yourself. So Sismo, in a very schematic way, as a user, I'm the only one that can see the aggregated data. I aggregate all my accounts in the Sismo data vault, and from that, I can start making disclosure that are privacy preserving from one, two, or several accounts at once. And so to see like what we are compared to VCs, verifiable credentials, or SBTs, we are the infrastructure under that. So from our ZK proofs, you could potentially issue a verifiable credential, or we can issue SBTs. That's what we did with our ZK badges. That's the tokenization of our zero-knowledge proofs under the format of the ERC 1155 SBT. So yeah, happy to have this conversation with others.
Awesome. Nich, you want to go next?
Awesome. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Happy to be here again with NEWFORUM. So I'm Nich. I'm currently conducting research at 1KX and also publish long-form deep dives into different emerging Web3 verticals. So in December, I published one on decentralized identity stack. And at 1KX, we're a crypto native early stage fund who have made infrastructure investments in infrastructure that accommodates these identity services like authorization and access control like LIT protocol to wallet standards like Wallet Connect, and to even credentialing like POAP, which allows you to prove your attendance in IRL events. So for me, like credentials and SBTs are just different ways of entities or identities making claims or attestations about each other, and it's just different flavors about how you represent those claims. So yeah, SBTs are just this emerging way to represent attestations as non-transferable NFTs.
Yeah, great. I want to follow up on that and ask you guys, like, where do you think right now SBTs are better or credentials are better, like from the use cases? And maybe Nich, you can go first, and then we can go around with that question.
Yeah, so I think over the past year, there's been this emergence of like SBT or non-transferable token issuance protocols, whose a large percentage of their target audience and integration partners are crypto natives who already understand NFTs. So it's like easy for them to digest and kind of like view as sort of like part of their collection. So since NFTs are on-chain assets, they have composability, and users don't have to learn anything new or like integrate any additional wallet services when interacting with the service. So it's been a nice abstraction layer to already public on-chain data. So for example, like Degen score, you're kind of aggregating your DeFi activity in different services, and then you're abstracting that and representing it as a DeFi credential, as an SBT, as an abstraction on top of already public data. It's also nice if the application that's consuming the credential, or what's the equivalent of verifiers in the DID world, are on-chain applications like DeFi apps. Since SBTs don't require them to implement like additional data stores or wallet integrations, they can just query SBT metadata directly for things like permission DeFi pools that require KYC. So we've seen like a few compliance NFTs right now being used for KYC for use in DeFi pools. But like Evin mentioned before, like these on-chain kind of data is a small subset of the universe of activity that humans do in real life. And for the off-chain things that we do, I think like DIDs and VCs are more like widely accepted and understood by the rest of the world, the rest of the population.
Yeah, interesting. Would love to hear, Evin, I know you've been on a talk with Vitalik and going back and forth about this. Would love to hear, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. And I would say two things that I really love are human beings and data primitives. And it makes me really sad when we use data primitives that are suboptimal for serving the human beings whose lives they could make better. So, I love NFTs. I love NFTs so much that I have ERC 721 tattooed on the back of my neck in the EIP font. But I think NFTs are wonderful containers for data that is public, immutable, that we want to be verifiably scarce. We want to have consensus around who owns it, where it's been, and we want to enjoy transferability so that we can have that verifiable scarcity. A few years ago, we also were in a similar position that we are now, discussing how we might modify the transfer function of our beloved 721s. And now we've got 1155s too in the mix. And, from my perspective, I find non-transferable, public, permanent attestations, data of, all structures, but NFTs included, to be suboptimal for data, for a container that needs to contain information that changes and evolves like we do, because we're human beings. Our identities aren't fixed and public and permanent. We don't look the same that we did when we were 8 years old. We probably don't even have the same favorite color. We might not even have the same food allergy, right? So as human beings, we change and we evolve. We are not defined by, singular events in our lives. And we also consent to how we show up in the world and what we share about ourselves. So public ledgers are a really wonderful way for us to enjoy public immutability and transferability, but they involve no consent. So I can send anything that I want to your wallet, and you either have to live with it, or you have to pay some gas to get rid of it, or in the future we could have hopefully more high consent types of interactions. But because of that, we need a sort of social agreement that we're only going to listen to those NFTs that we have some context around, being wanted or being accurate reflections of who we are. So for example, if you look in, every one of our panelists' OpenSea wallets today, you might not see a collection of only NFTs that they bought and wanted. You might see some items that were unwanted. And so the nice thing about verifiable credentials is that they offer us a consent layer. Credentials with Disco are currently stored encrypted against your keys so that they're only shared with others when you elect to share them, to decrypt them and to curate them about yourself. And so, we think of public ledgers as a place where anyone in that ecosystem can say anything they want about you. And we think of your data backpack as a curation of the best and most relevant information that you consent to share about yourself. Privacy is the cornerstone of civilized society, right? It gives us the freedom of assembly, the freedom of thought, of expression, allows us to hide the traits that can be used to marginalize and harm, communities who are not in the majority or who might be at risk. So for things like your gender, your relationship status, your ethnicity, your religion, your physical location, none of that data is appropriate for us to put on a public blockchain, but can be helpful to inform our on-chain interactions. And so we use verifiable credentials for access control everywhere. You could use tokens in Web2 physical spaces, as well as smart contracts on-chain. And one sort of last quick thing about, on-chain data, I think, it's important for us to remember we do live in a society and there are laws such as GDPR, CCPA, COPPA, COPA, DMCA in the United States. These govern things like child privacy and protection, intellectual property, and, digital sovereignty rights. And so for data that is governed by any of these sets of laws, it's not appropriate for us to publish it in its entirety in, clear text or plain text on chain, which is something I can't believe I have to say, but I know a lot of teams that we're aware of are doing this actively today, and it is unlawful. So when it comes to being street legal in Web3, we think the personally identifiable information is best encompassed in verifiable credentials.
Adrian, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to get a bit technical on this. I'm going to try to educate on the technicalities. So this is first, they still rely on the third party, and we have access. And so this is a standard that was created before the zero-knowledge proofs. And now we have tech cryptographic primitive that enables to safely reveal things. So the way VC are issued is that there is a third party that issues the VCs. That it is needed in the system. There is somebody that must do this, because we are used to have someone that vets our credentials. These credentials was emitted by your school, by your government, stuff like this. And so what we're trying here to do with Sismo is okay, now we have this new primitive. It enables us to, from source of truth that is public, let's say there is the group of proof of humanity registrants. It's a registrants of people that went through a KYC process. Or another source of truth can be, this is the public key of this verifier, like somebody that issues a credentials, it is this public key. What the zero-knowledge proofs enables you to do is like, hey, I've been issued this diploma from that school, but you cannot know exactly what it is. Similarly, you can say, hey guys, I'm part of this group, but I don't reveal which wallet I am in it. So just to say, whether it's VCs or SBTs, this is important. Now, what SBT brings to the table around this is that since these attestations are self-generated, meaning anyone can itself convince another third party of facts. So for instance, I can, with Sismo, with the Sismo SBT, I can create a new wallet and I can send this to SBT that I've been using Ethereum since before 2018, that I'm a long time user of Ethereum, and I can convince any party of this by sharing this public wallet. Now, why I think that SBTs are great is that first, let's not forget that addresses are accounts. They are technical accounts. They are not identities. And in the future, we can very well have thousands of accounts. So we can also have one account per SBT. In that sense, the SBT can become some sort of the Web3 cookies. You generate a new address, you put just a piece of data here, just the minimal you need to convince someone that you can access the service or stuff like that. And you will be only one that will do the link. Now, the third thing that is interesting about SBTs, in my opinion, is that let's not forget that blockchains are grades. So first, I have the programmability. Only a blockchain can ensure that this thing was issued following the computation of verifying a ZK proof. A ZK proof, how it works, like users generate a ZK proof, a zero-knowledge proof that says, hey, I'm part of this, and then somebody needs to verify it. We can do it on-chain. That's what we do at Sismo. So the SBT is basically anybody can verify that this is mathematically true. This person is part of that group. So that's very powerful. And to verify it on-chain is also very powerful because you don't have a third party that needs to be trusted for this. And the last thing I feel in the standardization is that we're still at the experimentation phase. We should keep being super open-minded and trying a bit everything. We're still learning out of this. I love your intro, Evin, that says the idea is that will not be built by one team. So yeah, SBT is great for experimentations too. But I would say that for the consent, I cannot disagree, because first, like for us, our SBTs, you need to prove first that you are eligible to this SBT. You are part of that group, you are part of the POH registry, and you are owner of the destination account. So for instance, the Sismo badges cannot be sent by anyone that is not you. So there are also ways to mitigate these things. It's too early, I think, to say that this is our bad for this because it's too centralized. I think that would be not a good point. It's too early to say that SBTs are bad because it's on-chain. That's what I would say for now.
One other thing I want to sort of hop in and just note, I think it's important for us to sort of discuss attested data in general, because right now attestations are having a moment, very, very exciting. Attestations or statements written by one party about another are just digital gossip. So you trust the utterance, the attestation, the statement, as much as you trust the party who said it to be expert on that subject matter. And so I absolutely agree. I think you make a really outstanding point that we are playing a trust game here. That when we talk about credentials, we trust them as much as we trust the credentialer who gave them. So I trust that a driver's license from the California Department of Motor Vehicles is better than a driver's license that was written in crayon by a 5-year-old. And, so that's sort of the crux of, how we think about attestations. Now, all of this is a trust game, right? Blockchains are not really trust minimized environments. We still trust that someone's going to pay the electricity bill for the miners and keep those, node clients updated in the same way that, we trust in one another when we sign attestations and we read them and we interpret that data for our own context. So just wanted to make one note here that, we've got statements that we say about ourselves. Sometimes those are really high quality. Sometimes we're not honest when we say things about ourselves, as evidenced by everyone under the age of 18 who's ever been on the internet. And so just wanted to sort of make a differentiation here that when we talk about different kinds of, data that describes human beings, we've got self-attested and we've got things that other people say about us, and we've got sort of different methods of expressing both of those.
Yeah, I think definitely on this point of digital gossip, that I could literally do just that whole debate on just digital gossip. There's one topic that we hold dear to our heart at New Foundation and NEWFORUM. It's the notion of social capital, which takes verifiable credentials and also SBTs, and it's really as a way to authenticate our skills and reputation. So if you're a designer, a creator, a developer, we can use these signals. So obviously today, not only in Web 2, but Web 3, we use reputation signals to determine who to hire, what to buy, or where to invest. And so I want to go back to Nich's actually conclusion in her article and start this discussion on composable reputation. She wrote, composable reputation, which grants online in real life access privileges, will be the catalyst for decentralized identity infrastructure. So tying this topic of composable reputation with digital gossip, is there anything that you would like to add, Nich, on this one? And then, of course, Evin, with Disco, I think there's a lot that can be said with composable reputation.
Yeah, like what are the utilities of the credentials, right, is what kind of excites me about attestations and credentials, whether they're VCs, whether they're SBTs. That's kind of like implementation decisions. So like broadly speaking, credentials just allows us to capture the things that we already do, like listen to music, contributing to communities, donating to causes, and then using that to discover and unlock further opportunities that are relevant to us. So the NFT collector community is already used to this concept of like conditional whitelist access, where you can get into a pre-sale if you held another NFT from a related collection. But I'd like to see it expand to things that we do off-chain, like listen to music or have that unlock a universe of experiences as well. So Spotify Wrapped tells you that you're a top 1% listener of a particular artist. So I would love to kind of like take that out of Spotify and like unlock things like ticket pre-sales for that artist, or submit a question for the artist in a Q&A, or for a more Web3 native or DAO native use case, contributions can be captured by something like Govern, which is like a contribution tracking protocol where you can self-report the types of things that you do within a social club or a DAO or community. And that if you can kind of encapsulate that data and capture it as a credential and use for different application, like for further third-party like rewards for things like if that community decides to do limited edition merch on MetaFactory, then I can use the governed data and the credential to unlock that. So that's kind of what I meant by, granting composable reputation, granting online and IRL access privileges. And then, it really matters where the data sources are coming from, right? Whether that's truthful, whether it can be gamed. So that's like the considerations when credentials issuers and like where these data is being stored, whether that's privacy preserving, whether that can be, if you can do like resolution for things like false data that's made about you, or that, preventing spamming and bots and stuff. Yeah, that was kind of like me unpacking that quote.
Nich, yes. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for that beautiful tee up. That is absolutely how we see the world forward. And thank you so much for naming some of our cool use cases and partners. Appreciate you covering that off for me so I don't have to explain it myself. So for real though, so at Disco, our definition of the metaverse is your ability to show up in any digital or physical environment and enjoy a personalized experience based on the parts of yourself that you choose to share. And so this personalized, seamless adventure from digital into physical space and back, where you consent to share parts of yourself to inform that personalization, that is the future that we have built today with many of our partners, and that's what we are excited to continue working toward in the future. So for example, right now, you can go to Disco.xyz, connect your MetaMask wallet with one click as you would normally, get your data backpack set up, send some GM credentials, kind of like Facebook style pokes to and from other data backpack owners. And then you can visit swag.disco.xyz, connect your wallet, we'll ping your data backpack, see those GM credentials, and you can get this hat shipped to your house for free, like literally right now. And this is a capability that we've built with our integration with Shopify. We also are super excited about our many API partners that allow us to do things like use credentials for access control to GitHub repositories and Telegram chats and Discord channels and smart contracts in the EVM ecosystem and physical places like parties. And so, part of what we're really excited about is that we're helping Web3 connect to the existing huge ecosystem of DID and VC users across Web 2. So in Web 3, we are late to the identity party. There's already a thriving ecosystem of networks that didn't talk to each other before, who figured out how to use DIDs and VCs to communicate information in a trust minimized and low-cost way. So, verifiable credentials don't have gas fees. They can be written by more than 150 different kinds of keys. They can be resolved by anyone with an internet connection. And depending on, how you're carrying around, you could even carry them on your device when you don't have an internet connection. And so in many different ways, the revocability, the low cost, the interoperability of credentials that we can carry around with us from one app to another, from one space to another, means that we don't have to be bound to a single underlying base chain. We don't have to use bridges to move data from one chain ecosystem to another, right? We are like disco balls. We are the multifaceted center of the party, reflecting our data to the world however we choose. And we are the same person who shows up to our Bitcoin address, our Ethereum address, our PGP key, our email address, our Twitter handle, etc. So we're particularly excited about enabling this future of fun where, as Nich just noted, you can carry your reputation from one space to another, regardless of what chain the apps are built on. We're having a beautiful conversation right now, and not once have we talked about how crispy the TCP IP is, or had to type in a custom RPC endpoint, or, any of that. And so if we can abstract away the underlying protocols with enabling experiences that deliver joy and value and remove friction from the lives of human beings, that is the goal that we are working to at Disco. We are chain agnostic and web agnostic in our overall philosophy. And so we think it's really important that we recenter our design conversation in Web3 around the human being, as opposed to, the technical complexity that's happening at the protocol layer, because it is elitist and exclusionary for us to require all human beings to participate in that conversation, to just be a part of what.
It's a great point that we should hear more at panels and the conferences in general. On this topic, Hadrien, first of all, congratulations, because Sismo just released last week ZK Connect. Can you explain a bit more what ZK Connect does, and especially why is it a game changer when it comes to privacy and what we mentioned before, credentials and things?
Yeah, so just first I want to so the WebT ZK Connect is the way it's a SSO, single sign-on. So for everyone, it's like sign in with Google, but in a sovereign way. So we branded it ZK because I think it tells it that we are privacy preserving. But I want to explain something that is important, is that the privacy is not the end at all. It's just an enhancer. And again, if we miss the ZK technology, the primitive that we have, we might miss the real things. here what we will enable with ZK Connect is not just like better crypto natives app, better on-chain apps. It's just like completely better apps, because we will enable developers to access the entire user's data thanks to privacy. Without privacy, you cannot request the bank statement of a user and their LinkedIn account, because you don't want them to merge that. Now I want to tell you something that is important. In Web2, we've all been raised with Web2 services that hold our data, our social capital. We don't have any access over it. So we can't do anything with our data. We don't care that much about the privacy because there's no risk. We cannot do things with our data. It's completely hunted. That's their business model. They make money out of your data. So of course, they don't leak it. If they leak it, they lose their company. Now what we are doing in Web3, we take ownership of our data. We start to accumulate data in our Web3 accounts. We start up attestation data signed. Signed, it's even if it's not on-chain, it's crypto data because you can prove stuff about it. So when you have a signature of a government, it's also your data anyway. So in Web3, in our wallets, we start to get social capital back. We start to have it, but it's too powerful for us. We were not used to be able to do things with our data. And so now you can, without even realizing, without consent, link your banking data with your social data. We have, like most advanced users, they have their wallets that are segregated, and they make sure to never link a private wallet with their INS that is on Twitter. So the thing is that, okay, we had the silos in Web2, now we silo ourselves in Web3. Why? Because we don't have privacy. So privacy is not at all, and it's just, we needed to now finally unlock all that is possible. So thanks to ZK Connect, as a user, I'm finally able to leverage my data. I'm finally able to invite in the same event my Facebook friends, my LinkedIn friends, my DAO friends, because they can prove they are my friends without linking these graphs together. I'm finally able to use all my social graphs together, and I need privacy for that. Otherwise, as others said here, like it's not sustainable. That's the price of it. So I think that with great power, great responsibility, right? So now that we have more and more data that is ours, Sismo is here to enable you to make the best out of it and for dApp developers to get anything. So very concretely, think about like when you sign in with Google, what you get out is like a contact list, maybe an email address, but that's all. With ZK Connect, you can also say, I want to know what's their Ether wallet, what's their buzzword, what's their participation, what's their Twitter relations, their Twitter friends, do they follow me on Twitter, anything. I can request that as an app. And if you compare it like more in a Web3 way to sign in with Ethereum, what's the option? You can say, hey guys, give me your wallet address and give me all your content that is in it. First, you cannot get access to multiple wallets, which things that you can do with Sismo. Okay, give me your aggregated balance of Ether from multiple wallets, and you can precisely select what you reveal. So again, I have the technological view here is because our dream is to unlock the new evolution of applications that understand that now we have this social capital that is programmable, and thanks to this privacy, we can unlock it. So our dream is to have like the new entrepreneurs that see this opportunity to make apps for the users. Hey, you can create a credit score that doesn't just take in account the financial data, but your Uber reputation, your Upwork reputation, your Airbnb reputation. So yeah, that's our thing. And so privacy is not the end goal. It's of course a value prop, but that's far from being the only one.
I really like what you said, Hadrien, with great power comes great responsibility. And I would love to hear what Evin and Nich think about like this, like how you think about privacy and anonymity in Web3 and how we attack this.
So I think it's important for us to be self-aware when we start systems of reputation in communities like ours, because often the distributors of reputation all look pretty similar. They all have pretty similar backgrounds, pretty similar economic power. They probably all speak a similar language. And there aren't a lot of people who, share the past experiences and identity that, for example, I have. So when we think about systems of reputation where we have no consent, such as a public ledger, where, anyone can make any attestation that they want, and we only have social pressure to control, how that is addressed or even, disagreed with. We were talking about earlier about how, it's important for us to have systems of evaluation when we have attestations as a basis for social capital. In the United States, we stopped burning witches hundreds of years ago because we decided that due process of law and ample opportunity for appeal was more important than being able to stick a badge on someone else that says, I don't like you, and for everyone in the world to see that, like a scarlet letter. When I was just out of school in 2012, there was a website called Lulu's. It was like Yelp, but you could leave reviews for men you went on dates with and give them a score and, provide some reputation so that the women could share with each other the experiences that they had with men. We could have a public reputation system. Obviously, that was destroyed by lawsuits into oblivion shortly thereafter, defamation suits all over the place. And so when we think about reputation systems in Web3 and the opportunity to bring more data than just our money into our interactions, I think it's important that we start off with those community systems and those reputation systems where we can unlock a lot of value by being able to learn more about one another. I think that we should start off by practicing with reputation systems that are positive and, allow for us to accrue positive reputation rather than starting off by distributing negative reputation, which could potentially be really harmful because of the, methods of distribution that we talked about earlier. So I think we're at a really exciting moment. In Web3, we're quickly running out of things to do with just tokens alone, right? When I look at you, if I could only see your wallet addresses, all I could see are piles of tokens. But I want you to be whole people able to express your full affinities and experiences. And so now we have the primitives required in a legally compliant way that can allow us to, interact across chains. And so I think introducing consent and legal compliance are going to be huge unlocks for our ecosystem in terms of being able to, to empower what we've been talking about this whole conversation, which is privacy, and the ability to engage with the existing ecosystem around us, whether that's the social capital that we practice in our physical spaces or the laws that govern the communities in which we operate.
Nich, do you want to answer to this? And bounce back also on the legal compliance, because this is also not to focus on it, but it's going to be a major topic in the years to come. And do you even have the start of an answer to this topic?
The legal compliance, yeah, I mean, like there's a few like compliance protocols tackling compliance in the form of KYC for like permission DeFi pools, but then a lot of them again are kind of like passing the baton back to the Web2 kind of identity providers and for them to handle the PII. So it's just more of a bridge between the centralized identity world and the readability, like making that readable by on-chain applications. So, these NFTs have metadata that say, whether you've done your KYC or not, but then the data is still with, the onboarding is still with like the persona and verif of the world. So, yeah, I mean, the compliance aspect is still tricky. I don't think anyone has that solved fully quite yet. On the reputation anonymity piece, it's important that we build systems that allow people to keep their anon accounts and express themselves in different ways across different contexts without giving the possibility of doing things like correlation where you're like doxing all your identities at once. And that's kind of the risk with kind of having all this data on chain and correlatable. So that's where.
So sorry for interrupting. I'm just curious, do you think that we can trust someone that is anonymous? Because going back also to what Hadrien said earlier, if we're talking about more mass adoption, the trust we're used to in generally speaking, is that you want to meet the person, you want to know more about them. So can we arrive at a state where the person's anonymous, but we can trust the technology and know that it's true? Do you believe in this in the coming years, or do you think it's more a decade project?
For trusting someone who's anonymous?
Yes.
I mean, I think so. If you think about like the on-chain detectives that are white hat hacking these smart contracts, right? A lot of them are anonymous, and the community turns to them to learn about smart contract vulnerabilities. So I think an individual can build reputation for a particular thing whilst protecting their real life like identity. So the reputation that accrues to that anonymous identity can accrue to that. And as long as they remain like contributing value to the community, the people can still trust them without knowing who they are in real life, right? So that's what I mean by, keeping anon accounts, because the individual wants to protect their like in real life identity and have like express themselves, maybe like dox themselves in one context but not the other. Who knows, maybe Evin might be some white hat hacker that with 200,000 followers on Twitter that is like exposing smart contract vulnerabilities, and doing these audits and stuff. So I think like that the technologies that allow people to remain anonymous are like things like ZK and like privacy preserving things that allow you to make attestations about yourself without exposing your public key that Sismo allows, is important infrastructure that allows for the positive use cases like that.
And maybe I can bounce just a bit about this. The way we thought about identity in the web is always account based. It's always like we often say I have my Twitter identity, my LinkedIn identity, my Facebook identity. And we have finally the tools here where we see that there's a lot of innovation around. How can I get, like in Sismo, any data, we call them data gems, any piece of data that is granular, it's entirely account agnostic, meaning that it doesn't matter where it comes from. Once you import it, a data source in your vault, like a Facebook account, your Ethereum addresses, if now you have voted 5 times on the ENS DAO, for instance, it doesn't matter whether it comes from one wallet, 2 wallets, or 3 wallets. And so that's changed everything, because now it mimics way better what happens in the real life. In the real life, you have so much things. And if I had to give a definition of identity, it would be in this context, like I have an identity, I don't know what it is, but I know that depending on each context, I choose what things I show. So it's very natural to granularly reveal things that you want to do. Maybe with your friends and your family, there are some things that you reveal that are the same, like basically your dogs at least, and some things. But then you are able to very precisely personalize, choose what you want to reveal in that context. And we're so lucky to have these things. First, the data ownership, like what blockchains have done, and sovereign data, it's amazing. And now we also have the technology to do things, to share this communication layer, this ZK technology, and there are others, but we have the technology, and that's what crypto is about. It's not only about blockchains, about money. It's like way wider than that. It's how you communicate on the internet, and we have new cryptography that enables us to mimic better what happens in the physical world. So yeah, I just want to say this, like we are so much used to account-based identity in the web, but no, we can just create a new identity on the go. Hey, ZK Connect actually from Sismo enables you to connect with your data directly. You can use this feature. There are many features in the ZK Connect, but you can really say, I connect with my I'm part of the proof of identity, the proof of humanity. And that's the only account that you share. So imagine the possibilities. It's so powerful.
I love that because, like Evin always says, we're multifaceted people, and sometimes we can't really reflect that online, and it's all fragmented all over the place. So let's imagine the world in a couple of years where you have 4 billion people onboarded to credentials and SBTs. How is this going to look like for the everyday person? Adrian, I would love to know, like, how do you imagine? And then maybe the others can also add their thoughts on it.
Yeah, so like the more concrete, like the long term is you have somewhere your identity, you're the only one that can see this. So let's say that you have an app, let's say that it's an app. You have all the aggregated views, you're the only one that has the aggregated view. A bit like in the physical world, in your brain or somewhere, you have the aggregated history that you remember. Here you would have an app. I would say that is the data, but I don't care what app it is. I don't want to say that it's Sismo, but you have an app where you see all your aggregated data. And then in the digital world or even the physical world, when you need to prove something, you just, scan a QR code or something like that, and says, oh, this app is requiring you, it is requesting to access these pieces of data. What do you want to share? And sometimes maybe you'll have a profile, like my financial profile with your data pre-selected, your familial profile with your data pre-selected. You can, okay, I want to come to this app with this identity. Or maybe we want to say, oh no, for this app, I want to do a custom-wise. I just want to reveal my age because, okay, it's required to be older than 18. but I don't want to reveal anything more. And so you'll have this power. You'll be the only one that sees this aggregated data, and you will be able to reveal anything that you want when you connect. So that would be, I think, one of the best ways to represent how it can be powerful in the future.
Thoughts on that, Evin, Nitch? What do you think?
All right, so I think that we can work on an even shorter time horizon here. So let's say, 2 to 3 years from now, you are at home, you're hanging out, you receive an invitation to the Disco at the Louvre in Paris. You don't reach for your wallet. You don't reach for, a suitcase. You just grab your data backpack, which might be in your Neuralink, might be in your mobile device, might be in a watch, might be in another wearable, and then you move seamlessly out of the doors of your apartment into a ride share, playing your favorite music set to your favorite temperature, through border screenings and security without having to take off your shoes, being able to arrive in a new country and to pass through health checks, to be able to get into the car on the other side, picking up where you left off on the album you were listening to before you left, arriving at your hotel, and having your favorite snack greet you, and then being able to show up at the disco, being served your favorite beverage without having to ask for it. And so that ability to enjoy personalized experiences based on what you consent to, the end of forms and waiting in lines to specify something that you could have shared beforehand. Our hope is that reusable data will eliminate the 11.5 billion hours a year that Americans spend filling out forms and creating redundant, clear text copies of information that they've already shared before. And so our vision for the future is that we spend a lot less time onboarding. In fact, we don't get met with an open form when we start a new app. Instead, we just hop straight into our adventures. We don't have to specify our pants or shoe size when we walk into a store, because we're going to be able to identify the item that will fit us best based on our body and how we're feeling that day. And so the ability to curate personalized experiences while, as Adrian was noting, preserving our privacy and, utilizing our consent as a lever between privacy and publicity, where we're in the driver's seat rather than, some display ad trying to mess with how close we think we are to our friends to get us to buy more things on Instagram.
I love that you bring in the topic of fashion, obviously, and events, because I just generally think that connected to the physical is also very important. So, Nitch, I would love to hear your thoughts on how it's going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think Evin said it perfectly. It's just it wouldn't be like an additional thing that we're accruing. Like, it wouldn't be like something that we're collecting just for the sake of collecting credentials. But it would just be, us interacting with the applications and the experiences that we already do, and then like once, and then have that be reusable for further experiences. Yeah, but I think you said it perfectly. I don't really have anything to add to that.
Yeah, just one last question as we approach the end is the massive topic of kind of user experience in Web3. When it comes to kind of composable reputation and user experience, how do you see it happening? Is it with through apps? Is it with virtual reality? Is it with AI, with ChatGPT? And we saw the success of ChatGPT because it's so simple to use. In less than a week, you had millions of people, like for the first time almost in history, beat Instagram and all that, because it was so easy to use. So what do you think is missing in the space? Is it projects like Disco that just go through the experience layer and really simplify things? Or do you think it's more about educating? What's your take on this open question? I don't expect, of course, a perfect answer. Nobody really has it, but what would you say is the way to go?
I am so excited about the opportunity for us to bring the data that we're learning to take custody of into these enabled connected experiences. Right now, when you talk to ChatGPT, it's like they're a stranger. They're the person sitting behind the, faceless party behind the information kiosk, and they don't know who you are. Imagine bringing your data backpack to a ChatGPT enabled conversation, so that instead of talking to an AI stranger, you're talking to someone who has access to the entirety of your data, who's able to, get inside your head, be like your therapist and your mom and your roommate all wrapped into one AI partner. And so the ability to personalize content and to have assurances that an AI generated recommendation will be well suited to you that is a near future that I am really excited about. The ability to have zero knowledge ad networks that make recommendations of content to us based on our data without exposing it, while also streaming payment of tokens to us for being exposed to that content. I think, this is a really exciting model that we're starting to see traction. We're working with some partners at Disco to make these sorts of things possible. So, really stoked on that consent first, value add, delight enabling near future.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think on the user onboarding into Web3 piece, I think like users need a motivator to, change their behavior or do something, right? So there's a lot of educational content out there that can, say the differences between all these technologies, but that's not going to inspire people to adopt a product. So like the way, just like how in Web 1, we have these username and passwords, and then Web 2 was just like this one-click thing where you can use your Facebook to log in everywhere. Facebook didn't need to educate users to convince them to use that, right? It was just like a much more delightful experience. And I think if Web3 can kind of like be a 10x UX improvement, then they don't need to learn about what's under the hood for us to adopt like composable data and credentials and DIDs. It just works, right? So for example, if you've contributed to a community and there was like a jobs board where you can select like which parts of your contribution data you want to reveal to be kind of shortlisted by recruiters and companies that are hiring, then you would consent to that. And if you're being served better recruiter emails than LinkedIn, that's more like targeted to what you're interested in and the communities that you align with in their culture, then I'm gonna move to that jobs platform instead of like stay with the existing ones. Right. So yeah, it just improves like relevance and also the data, it doesn't matter like if it's hiring platform or another, like all of those apps can tap into your data and you can consent for them to tap into that data, and whichever one serves the best experiences gets that user as a customer, right? And you're not locked into one thing that owns your social graph and your things that people have written about you. It kind of stays with you, and you're plugging it into applications that then are incentivized to serve you the best experience.
Nich, you said something really, really, and I just wanted to echo that real quick on the UX front, because Jordan, I realized I didn't address your whole question fully. Nich mentioned that UX is the great unlock, is the enabler, is the abstraction layer that will allow us to be relevant to more than just the people who already listen to the NEWFORUM podcast, religiously. And so I think it's important for us to remember, like, identity isn't the thing or the destination. It's the thing that gets you to the thing. It's the enabling set of characteristics or traits that we use to interact with the world and every other environment around us. And so making that layer accessible to us is the great unlock to make protocols relevant to human beings, right? The entire experience of a blockchain happens between your keyboard and your face with what you can see with your eyeballs. It does not matter how beautiful the consensus mechanism is if there is no application for you to interact with or service for you to benefit from. So I think all too often in Web3, we reach for difficult technical problems that are more comfortable to our skill sets rather than tackling the brutal and difficult challenge of meeting human beings in a way that treats them with respect and brings them joy, because that is tough. It requires talking to people, and it requires communicating in a non-technical and visual language that is so different than the expertise required to excel at the protocol layer.
On our side, I think that just because it's important, I think like we have another, I guess, visual analyst. The thing is that at Sismo, we're the best at building this tech, like the selectivity disclosure. That's a primitive, and we just want to make it available for anyone. This weekend, we had a hackathon with with projects, like they were mind blown by it. I think that we made a 0-1 with our ZK SSO. It's a technical thing, but the DevX is crazy. And let's not forget about this. Yes, you could very well, like let's say that the mobile phone was invented like Apple, or you can try to make a website available in a small format on you can use the old tech and try to make it usable, but the best is to leverage the best tech and make it available for the new generation of entrepreneurs. And so that's what we are doing. I think like everybody now can use ZK, selective disclosure, as easy or even easier than how you would integrate signing with Google. And that's all our efforts will put it there so that we have the best UX person that thinks about the new apps that were just not possible before. That's the thing. Like Uber was not created because it was a good timing. I don't know. It's because you could do it on the mobile. These things like, so we hope to make this available for all people that are better than us at UX onboarding. And we want to be just the humble infrastructure so that, as we said already, the identity doesn't matter. It needs to be like, they shouldn't be aware. They should just be, oh, I can finally use my data across apps. That's all. So we just do this. Like we enable entrepreneurs and developers to do this. Use finally the data that is ours, that we've been raised to forget that it's our data.
It's a very great point, Hadrien. And sorry to interrupt you. I know we have like a hard stop and literally 2 minutes. Maybe just before we conclude, is there anything that you would like to add in terms of the question we always ask, what's your guilty pleasure in Web3, or any article that inspired you lately? Go for it. You literally have 20 seconds each, and then we go to the conclusion. Sorry, Hadrien, for interrupting just at the end. Maybe Nich, you want to go first? Guilty pleasure or whatever inspired you recently.
My guilty pleasure is discovering like new products or protocols on Twitter and then like trying them out right away. And then maybe that's not too safe of a thing to do, just like go on random links and mint NFTs. But yeah, that's my and then I guess so I write these articles like that dive into different verticals in Web3, right? And like identity was a really unique one because it kind of touches on everything, but it in and of itself is not like the end goal, like Evin mentioned. So there's like things like DAO tools and wallets and creator economy, creator tooling stuff, but like my experience is that all of those things kind of tie into identity in one way. So it's been nice to like dive down into different rabbit holes and see that it's all identity all along.
Yes. Boys Club newsletter, BoysClub.eth comes out on Sundays. Absolutely hilarious. Recent one described biology as being a pick-me girl.
Great. Hadrien, 20 seconds, guilty pleasure.
It's social, that's all.
Which one?
Web3 social. I love to see this thing emerging in the community. It's a small community that is like so many innovative people, creators. Like I agree, it could be more diverse, but we're getting there. Like there is something that is happening. So loving it.
Amazing. I mean, I'm so happy that we have you guys all building the space and figuring out what's gonna happen in the next years, and for all of the creators out there and the NEWFORUM community. I think this is gonna be so interesting and so huge. So thank you so much for joining us today. Jordan, do you have any last thoughts on this?
No, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, the socials of all of our guests will be in the description. Thank you so much once again.
See you in the metaverse. Thank you.